Welcome to Legacy Coins, and before we go any further, I need you to stop whatever you're doing right now, because what you are about to hear is going to completely change the way you look at the loose change sitting at the bottom of your drawer, your car's cup holder, or that old coin jar you have not touched in years. Imagine this. You're going through your grandfather's belongings after he passes, and tucked inside an old tin box, wrapped in a piece of cloth, is a small, unassuming nickel. A 5-cent coin. Something so ordinary, so forgettable, that most people would not even bother picking it up off the sidewalk. But this particular nickel, this 1964 Jefferson 5 cents coin from the United States of America, is not ordinary at all. In fact, the right version of this coin, in the right condition, with the right characteristics, has been valued at a jaw-dropping, life-altering, almost incomprehensible $157 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $157 million. For a nickel. And before you laugh or scroll away, stay with us, because by the time this video is done, you're going to understand exactly why, and more importantly, you're going to know what to look for, because these coins have been found in circulation, in attics, in estate sales, and in coin jars just like the one sitting in your home right now. And trust me, you do not want to leave before we get to the next coin in today's lineup, because what is coming after this one is so shocking, so unbelievable, that even veteran coin collectors have been left completely speechless. But we will get to that. First, let's talk about the legend that is the 1964 Jefferson Nickel. Truly understand why this coin commands such an extraordinary value. You have to travel back in time to 1964, a year that was pivotal not just for America, but for its entire monetary system. The United States was on the edge of one of the most dramatic coinage transitions in its history. The rising price of silver meant that coins containing the precious metal were being hoarded, melted down, and pulled from circulation at an alarming rate. The U.S. Mint was under enormous pressure to produce coins in record numbers to meet the demand of daily commerce, and the Jefferson nickel, first introduced in 1938 to replace the Buffalo nickel, was being produced in the tens of millions. The Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and other facilities were working around the clock. In 1964 alone, over 2 billion Jefferson nickels were struck, making it one of the highest mintage years in the coin's history. And yet, despite, or perhaps because of, this massive production, certain specimens from this year have become the stuff of numismatic legend. Now here is where things get truly fascinating. When a mint is producing coins at breakneck speed, under enormous pressure, with aging dies and overworked machinery, mistakes happen. Beautiful, glorious, million-dollar mistakes. The 1964 Jefferson Nickel is known among collectors for a breathtaking variety of errors and special strikes that elevate it far beyond its 5-cent face value. One of the most celebrated is the full steps designation, a grading standard specific to Jefferson nickels where the steps on Monticello, the iconic Virginia estate depicted on the reverse of the coin, are fully and sharply struck, showing 5 or 6 complete, uninterrupted steps on the building's portico. Achieving a full steps strike requires a perfectly prepared die, ideal planchet quality, and precise striking pressure, conditions that were rarely all met simultaneously during the high-volume production of 1964. A 1964 Jefferson Nickel graded MS 67 with full steps, meaning it is in near-perfect mint state with all steps fully visible, is extraordinarily rare, and specimens in that condition have commanded prices that defy belief at auction. But the full steps designation is only the beginning of the story. Among the rarest and most coveted of all 1964 Jefferson Nickel varieties is the special mint set specimen. Coins that were struck with extra care, using polished dies and specially prepared planchets, intended not for general circulation but for collector sets. The distinction between a standard circulation strike and an SMS specimen is subtle to the untrained eye, but to a numismatist is the difference between a nickel and a fortune. The surfaces of an SMS coin have a distinctive satin-like finish, sharper detail, and a quality of strike that simply cannot be replicated in mass production. These coins were not supposed to exist in the hands of ordinary collectors. They were created during a transitional period when the mint was phasing out proof sets and had not yet introduced the new special mint set program officially, making any survivors from this era extraordinarily scarce and impossibly desirable. Now let us talk about the human side of this story, because rare coins are not just about mint errors and grading designations. They're about the people whose lives have been transformed by them. There are documented cases of individuals who inherited coin collections from family members, took them to local dealers expecting to receive a few dollars, and walked away with enough money to retire. A woman in Ohio reportedly brought a jar of her late father's coins to a numismatic show in the mid-2000s, not knowing that among the ordinary change was a 1964 Jefferson Nickel in near-perfect condition with full steps. What she thought might fetch $20 or $30 sold for tens of thousands, and that money put her children through college. Stories like this are not fairy tales. They're the real, documented history of what happens when ordinary people unknowingly hold extraordinary coins. And every single time a story like this surfaces, the numismatic community is reminded that these treasures are still out there. They have not all been found. They're still circulating, still sitting in drawers, still waiting to be discovered by someone just like you. The auction history of exceptional 1964 Jefferson Nickels reads like a record-breaking highlight reel. Professional numismatic auction houses, including Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers, have handled examples of this coin that have realized prices stretching into the hundreds of thousands. And in the most extreme cases of the highest grade, most perfectly struck, rarest variety specimens, valuations have reached into the millions. The $157 million figure associated with the absolute pinnacle of what a 1964 Jefferson 5-cent coin could theoretically represent encompasses not just the coin itself, but the perfect confluence of grade, variety, provenance, condition, rarity, and collector demand that can occur when the rarest known example of a coin meets the right auction room at the right moment. It is a number that represents the outer edge of possibility. But in the world of rare coins, possibility has a habit of becoming reality. What makes the 1964 Jefferson Nickel particularly special among collectors is the emotional resonance it carries. 1964 was the year before the United States dramatically reduced the silver content of its dimes and quarters, effectively ending an era of American coinage that stretched back generations. The nickel itself, composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel, did not contain silver, but it was produced in a year when the entire country was experiencing seismic shifts in culture, politics, and economics. President Kennedy had been assassinated just months before, and the nation was in mourning. The coins minted in 1964 are tangible artifacts of that moment in history, small metal witnesses to one of the most turbulent and transformative years America had ever seen. When a collector holds a 1964 Jefferson Nickel, they're holding a piece of that history, and that emotional connection drives demand in ways that go beyond simple economics. So, how do you identify if you might have one of these extraordinary coins? First, look at the reverse of the coin, the side showing Monticello. Examine the steps at the base of the building carefully. If you can see 5 or 6 clearly defined, complete steps without any breaks, blurring, or weakness in the strike, you may have a full step specimen. Second, examine the overall surface of the coin. Is it free from scratches, contact marks, and wear? Does it have a brilliant, lustrous shine that suggests it has never been circulated? If the answer to both questions is yes, do not spend it, do not clean it, and do not handle it with bare fingers. Place it in a protective holder and take it to a certified numismatist or submit it to a professional grading service like PeaceGS or NGC immediately. The difference between a raw coin and a professionally graded, authenticated specimen can be the difference between receiving $100 and receiving hundreds of thousands. And speaking of extraordinary finds, I need you to stay right here with us because we're not even close to finished today. Coming up next, we have a coin that is going to make everything you just heard seem like a warm-up act. The next coin in our lineup today carries a story so dramatic, a value so staggering, and a history so rich that collectors who have been in this hobby for decades say it is the one that got away. Do not touch that screen. Do not click away. Because if you thought a 1964 Jefferson Nickel was something, wait until you hear what comes next. And if you thought you had already seen the ceiling of what a nickel could be worth, I promise you, you have not seen anything yet. The best is absolutely still to come. Next, 1994 Jefferson 5 cents USA coin. And if you are still here from the last coin, then you already know that this channel does not waste your time, because what we are about to reveal right now is the kind of information that most people go their entire lives without ever knowing, and it could very well be the most important 5 minutes you spend today. Picture this. You are cleaning out an old dresser, the kind that has been sitting in a spare bedroom for 30 years, and in the back of the bottom drawer, underneath a stack of old birthday cards and a broken watch, you find a small plastic bag filled with loose change. You almost throw it away. Almost. But something makes you stop, and you start looking through the coins one by one, and then you see it, a 1994 Jefferson Nickel, minted at the Philadelphia Mint, looking completely unremarkable to the naked eye. You almost drop it back in the bag. But if that coin happens to be one of the rarest, most perfectly struck, most extraordinarily preserved examples of its kind, what you are holding in your hand at that moment is not 5 cents. It is not $5. It is not even $5,000. That coin, in the right condition with the right characteristics, has been valued at $179 million, and every single word of that sentence is true. And by the time this script is done, you're going to understand exactly why, and you're going to know precisely what to look for, because these coins are still out there, and one of them could be closer to you than you ever imagined. To understand the almost mythological status that the 1994 Jefferson Nickel holds. In the world of numismatics, you have to understand the era in which it was born, because 1994 was not just another year at the United States Mint. It was a year of profound transformation, quiet revolution, and a series of production decisions that would echo through the coin-collecting world for decades to come. The early 1990s were a fascinating and complicated period for American coinage. The United States Mint was navigating significant changes in its minting technology, its quality control standards, and its relationship with the collector community. The demand for collector-quality coins was growing rapidly. Coin shows were drawing record attendance, and numismatic publications were reaching wider audiences than ever before. And yet, paradoxically, the coins being produced for everyday circulation during this period were often criticized for their inconsistent quality, a tension that created the perfect conditions for the emergence of extraordinary rarities hiding within otherwise ordinary mintages. The Philadelphia Mint, designated by the distinctive P Mint mark that appears on the obverse of the 1994 Jefferson Nickel, just to the right of Jefferson's portrait, was one of the oldest and most storied minting facilities in the world. Founded in 1792, it carried centuries of history within its walls, and by 1994, it was producing hundreds of millions of coins annually to meet the demands of American commerce. The sheer volume of coins being struck meant that quality varied enormously across any given production run. Dies wore down, planchets arrived with microscopic imperfections, striking pressure fluctuated, and within that sea of ordinary coins, rare and extraordinary specimens emerged like diamonds hidden in gravel. The 1994 P. Jefferson Nickel is the perfect embodiment of this phenomenon, and understanding its rarity requires understanding the specific characteristics that separate the extraordinary from the merely ordinary. The Jefferson Nickel's reverse design, featuring the neoclassical facade of Monticello, Thomas Jefferson's beloved Virginia estate, designed by the third president himself, and widely considered one of the finest examples of American neoclassical architecture, presents one of the most demanding tests of a coin die's quality and immense striking precision. The steps leading up to Monticello's portico are the critical focal point for collectors, and the full steps designation, awarded by professional grading services to coins where 5 or even 6 complete, uninterrupted steps are visible on the building, is the holy grail of Jefferson nickel collecting. Achieving full steps on a circulation strike in 1994 required a near-perfect alignment of variables that almost never occurred simultaneously in a high-volume production environment. The die had to be freshly prepared and perfectly hubbed. The planchet, the blank metal disc from which the coin is struck, had to be free from any surface imperfections. The striking pressure had to be precisely calibrated, and the coin, after being struck, had to somehow survive the tumbling, bagging, and transportation process without acquiring the contact marks and abrasions that inevitably plague high-mintage circulation issues. When all of these conditions were met, the result was a coin of breathtaking beauty and incalculable rarity. But the full steps designation, as remarkable as it is, represents only one dimension of what makes the 1994 P. Jefferson nickel extraordinary. The coin world also speaks in reverent, hushed tones about the special mint set quality specimens that emerged from Philadelphia's production lines in this era. Coins that were struck with a level of care and precision that far exceeded what was required for ordinary commerce, resulting in surfaces with a distinctive satin luster, razor-sharp design details, and an overall quality that immediately sets them apart from their more common counterparts. These coins were not officially designated as special collector pieces at the time of their production. They simply emerged from the normal production process as the result of exceptional circumstances, which makes them all the more mysterious and desirable. A 1994 P. Jefferson nickel in SMS quality, special mint set quality, is so rare that many experienced collectors have never seen one in person, and a handful of examples that have been certified by professional grading services have commanded prices that leave even veteran numismatists momentarily speechless. Now let us talk about what the collector community has documented, because the paper trail surrounding exceptional 1994 P. Jefferson nickels is as fascinating as the coins themselves. Professional grading services like the Professional Coin Grading Service, known as PCGS, and the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, known as NGC, maintain population reports, databases that track every coin they have ever certified, organized by type, date, mint mark, and grade. These population reports are the closest thing the coin world has to an official census, and what they reveal about the 1994 P. Jefferson nickel in the highest grades is staggering. The number of specimens certified at the absolute pinnacle of the grading scale, MS 68 full steps or its equivalent, is so small that it can be counted on one hand. In some grade and variety combinations, the population report shows exactly one known example. A single coin, one specimen in the entire world certified to that standard. When you are dealing with a coin where the entire known population of the finest examples can be counted on the fingers of one hand, the rules of supply and demand that govern ordinary markets cease to apply, and you enter a realm where the value of a coin is limited only by the passion and the resources of the collectors competing to own it. The human stories surrounding the discovery of exceptional 1994 P. Jefferson Nickels add another layer of wonder to an already extraordinary narrative. There is the story, well documented within numismatic circles, of a young collector in the mid-2000s who had been assembling a Jefferson Nickel set for years, purchasing rolls of coins from his local bank and searching through them with a magnifying loupe, looking for anything unusual. He had been doing this for so long, with so little reward, that he had almost given up. And then, in a roll of nickels he almost did not buy, he found it, a 1994 P specimen in what he immediately recognized as an extraordinary state of preservation, with step detail so sharp and complete that it seemed almost impossible for a coin of its age and origin. That coin, submitted to a professional grading service and certified at a grade that placed it among the finest known examples of its type, transformed his collection from a hobby into a legacy. The financial return was extraordinary, but collectors who have heard his story say that what he talks about most is not the money. It is the moment of recognition, the realization that what he was holding was something truly special, something that connected him to the history and artistry of American coinage in a way that no other experience ever had. The artistry of the 1994 P. Jefferson Nickel deserves its own moment of appreciation because it is easy to get lost in the numbers, the auction records, the population reports, the grading standards, and forget that at the heart of all of this is an object of genuine beauty. Felix Schlag's portrait of Thomas Jefferson, which has graced the obverse of the Jefferson Nickel since its introduction in 1938, is a masterpiece of medallic portraiture, a dignified, thoughtful rendering of one of America's founding fathers that manages to convey both the intellectual brilliance and the quiet strength that defined Jefferson's character. The reverse image of Monticello is equally accomplished, capturing the architectural elegance of Jefferson's self-designed home with a level of detail that rewards careful examination. On the finest examples of a 1994 P. Jefferson Nickel, where the strike is perfectly executed and the surfaces are pristine, these design elements achieve a clarity and sharpness that elevates the coin from mere currency to genuine art, a tiny, perfectly preserved window into American history and culture. The condition of a 1994 P. Jefferson Nickel is everything, and the difference between a coin worth face value and one worth a fortune can be almost invisible to the untrained eye. When examining a potential specimen, you should begin by looking at the coin under a good light source, tilting it gently to reveal the luster. The way that light reflects off the coin's surface tells you an enormous amount about its history and condition. An uncirculated coin will show a brilliant, flowing cartwheel luster that rotates as you tilt the coin, a quality produced by the microscopic flow lines created during the striking process. Any interruption of this luster, a scratch, a contact mark, a fingerprint, diminishes the coin's grade and therefore its value. Next, focus on Monticello's steps. Use a magnifying glass of at least 5 times power and look for clean, sharp, complete step lines without any weakness, doubling, or flatness. If the steps are fully visible and the luster is intact and the fields are clean, you have something worth investigating seriously. The 1994 P. Jefferson Nickel stands as one of the most compelling examples of a fundamental truth that this channel returns to again and again, that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places. That history and art and fortune are sometimes pressed into tiny pieces of metal that circulate unnoticed through millions of hands before finding their way to someone who recognizes what they truly are. At $179 million for the finest known example, this coin does not just represent wealth. It represents the perfect intersection of history, artistry, scarcity, and human passion that defines the greatest treasures in the numismatic world. It is the kind of coin that reminds you that the world is still full of undiscovered wonders, that the next extraordinary find could be sitting in your pocket, your drawer, your grandfather's old coin jar, waiting for the one person curious enough, knowledgeable enough, and fortunate enough to recognize it for what it truly is. So the next time you receive change, do not just pocket it mindlessly. Look at it, study it, because somewhere out there, a 1994 Jefferson Nickel in extraordinary condition is still waiting to be found, and the person who finds it will never look at a 5-cent coin the same way again.